Welcome to North Wales and one of the most rugged and dramatic parts of Great Britain. But with easy access from big population centres, it is the perfect setting for outdoor activities, including what has become the leading multi-terrain triathlon series in the UK. Over 1,000 competitors have come to the small town of Capel in the Snowdonia mountain range for the Snowman Triathlon powered by Sunto, the last event in the Always Aim Tri series. It's a 3-event series that began back in May in Llanberis with the Snowman Triathlon. Defending champion Susie Richards held off Natalie Seymour in a tightly fought women's race. Ewan Brown, defending the men's title, was imperious on the run through the quarries to take yet another victory. The Anglesey Sandman was next. And Brown took another victory over the dunes of Newborough Forest. 2 out of 2 for this season and 6 successive Always Aim Tri wins. Injury to Susie Richards meant she was unable to race and out of the series. Natalie Seymour seized her chance and dominated the women's race, showing improvements in all 3 sections. Each of the 3 events has a famously tough final stage, and with the mountain run up and down Moel Shabod, today's race, the Snowman, is the toughest of the lot. But the prize for winning the series offers serious compensation. The leading man and woman at the end will win a holiday on the Caribbean island of Nevis for some all-important vitamin D and a taste of swim, bike, run in paradise with an entry into the Nevis Triathlon. The series victory goes to the man and woman with the lowest cumulative time over all 3 races. And going into the final event here at the Snowman, Ewan Brown is in a good position, but he still has threats to worry about. Natalie Seymour just needs to avoid disasters. As a former international hockey player, she should have the professionalism to do this and will know exactly how to motivate herself.
There's always something different about these races and always a different challenge that you're not expecting. So I'm just going to go out there and focus on the race really today. And I think as it gets tough, I'll have some nice images of the Caribbean in mind maybe.
Both Lewis Eccleston and Alex Foster have been beaten often enough by Brown to know what to expect. But like Brown, they're here to win. And they both have the right and the ability to believe that it's possible.
Anything could happen. As we've seen at Snowman, with Ewan took a puncture and a fall, but it didn't stop him from still winning it. But we never know, anything could happen on the day.
I think it might be a bit of a tough task to get there in front of Ewan. He's built up a nice lead for himself, which is credit to him. So I think it takes something a bit special to beat him here.
The race starts in Llanberis, and it's a slightly shortened course due to the water temperature, a chilly 11.2 degrees, and the course cut down to just under 500 metres. And that's tough on the swimmers like Foster and Hawkins, who hope to get a decent advantage in this first stage, and good for the likes of Ewan Brown, who knows that he will lose minimal time over a shortened swim. It's worth remembering that Ewan Brown has never been beaten in this race, but he still respects the course, there's no doubt about that.
It's quite easy to burn your matches, so to speak, early on in a race like this, but you know it's going to be over 3 hours, so you can't treat it like a sprint. So it'll be kind of just get into a rhythm on the bike, I think, and start getting stuck into some of the hills and wind up towards the end.
Identification never easy in the water, but Ross Hosking is the man who leads at the moment. Alex Foster certainly in that front group of 4, and I expect that Paul Hawkins is there as well.
I obviously wouldn't like to win it due to Ewan getting a mechanical or anything like that. I'd like to win it outright, so that's what I was going for. You can't rely on anything out of your control.
So it's going to be Ross Hosking who's first out of the water. He's a great swimmer, he's good on the bike. I don't think I can say the same about the run. It will be a survival run for Hosking, no doubt about that. But he has got himself a little bit of a lead coming out of the water, and he'll hope to maintain that as he goes in and out of T1. Alex Foster in second place. Paul Hawkins is there as well. Ben Elliott with a good swim. And it looked to me as though Ewan Brown is leading that next group. He is. There's Ewan Brown out of the water. Very quick to make it onto the tracks. And he could close the gap before he gets to the top of the hill. Ross Hosking, we've seen him in the Always Aim Try events before. Always up with the leaders out of the water. And here is Ewan Brown, that familiar red vest of his racing colours for the season. Alex Foster in yellow, just making his way up to the end of the grid where his bike is positioned. Now, Foster can match Brown on the bike, but he needs a lead on Brown before the run. I think that's fair to say, although we have to remember Foster is a good fell runner. Might fancy his chances. It's going to be an interesting race, no doubt about it. Ewan Brown, no panic, no rush, just wants to make sure that he has everything in order. Usually has a 3-course meal strapped to his bar. And it's Paul Hawkins who's quickest in transition. Now you'll notice the leaders, the majority of the leaders on time trial bikes, they've all got the teardrop helmets worth perhaps a minute every 40 kilometres, and this race on the bike over 69 kilometres, that's a minute and a half they can gain just for their headwear alone. That is significant. Now leading women, Stella Farah, again the quickest woman in the water, the British 1500 metre record holder, and this time followed by Natalie Seymour. Now that's a wonderful swim from Seymour. I know it's a shortened swim, but she is getting better every time she goes in the water. What a career this woman has ahead of her. Remember, she was an international hockey player, represented Great Britain at the Commonwealth Games in 2010. We may see her in 2018, but in a different sport. Good drills as well from Natalie Seymour. A really professional approach from her. And she's up onto the road above Plassebrennan, and the start of what is one of the toughest triathlon bike rides in the UK. So one by one they take their place on the bikes, and this is what they have ahead of them. They leave Capel-Curig through Peniguirad, down past Nant Gwynant before they get to Beth Gelert, and then the technical section that leads them down into the Vale of Festiniog, and then the long climb up over the Crimea Pass, the highest pass in this section of Snowdonia. Betsikoi signifies the last stretch up to Capel-Curig and then into T2, of course, before they switch to the run, and it's a tough run. Well, those not in a hurry can enjoy the spectacular scenery on the way. Those wanting to win will have to have their tactical heads on. And Paul Hawkins leading at the moment, but he's got the figure of Ewan Brown right behind him. Ewan Brown usually has to use quite a few reserves to catch the leaders from the swim. Not on this occasion. The margin in T1 was only 8 seconds. And Brown going ahead of 3 of his competitors in the transition alone, and here he comes. He chooses just the right point. There's a little uphill section coming after this, and Ewan Brown uses the speed on the downhill. Will he try and get clear? He might do, but as soon as he gets ahead of Hawkins, Hawkins has the advantage. Slipstreaming at its best is worth 30%. but in this sort of triathlon, you have to drop back those 10 metres, and there is still a benefit. No one's denying that, but it's minimal compared to if you are right on the back wheel of the man in front. Brown regularly checking over his shoulder, not pulling away from Hawkins at the moment, and he will be concerned about Alex Foster. Here comes Natalie Seymour onto the bike first after a good transition, and I'm not sure she is going to see another woman all day, except for when she's coming down from the top of Moyle Chabon. What a start from her.
It'll just be about staying focused and concentrated, trying not to be too aggressive or silly on those descents. You need to get around the bike course, and I think, my strength is hopefully going up them, and we'll see what happens.
Well, wise words from Natalie Seymour. There are some very, very fast sections, and Ewan Brown and Paul Hawkins are on one at the moment. Brown knows these roads better than most. Hawkins could do well just sticking with him. Well, there is the first mistake, and Paul Hawkins has gone down. It seems that he's all right. I think just applying the brakes too heavily. It's a tough section. 5 years in the Marines, he'll be used to a few bumps and scrapes. I don't think that will be an issue, but we'll see whether he's fit enough to run at the end of the bike ride. An opportunity then for Alex Foster, who's now up into runners-up position and is actually starting to close down on Ewan Brown, who's on his own at the front of the field. Jack McFarlane has moved up into third place with that misfortune to Paul Hawkins. But I think Alex Foster is the big threat. He would love to win today, but can he pull back 6 minutes on Ewan Brown and win that trip to Nevis? Welcome back to the Snowman Triathlon powered by Sunto here in Snowdonia, and a stunning day for the athletes that are taking part. The leaders well into the bike ride, a 69-kilometre ride that will bring them back towards Capel Curig for the final leg. Alex Foster, once again, is the man chasing. He's in second place at the moment, and up ahead is Ewan Brown, the man who has won 6 Always Aim tri-races in succession, making his way over the top of the Crimea Pass. And now the fun, the downhill section, perhaps the fastest section of the ride altogether. Brown still leading, and while the big names are out on the road, the kids getting involved as well, as is always the case. Oshan Perrin, well, he's becoming a big name. A dominant performance yet again in the youngsters race, and getting 2.5 minutes clear of his nearest rival. A star of the future, no doubt.
I go swimming 3 times a week, and then I go running 3 times a week. So, and then in my spare time, I just go for runs or cycling mainly. I do.
So Oshan's still 12. He's got a PB for a mile of 5:02. I don't think there's any doubt that he will be winning these races at some time in the future. Well, as well as the long distance snowman, we have the sprint race, and a lot of competitors entering for the short race, but it's just as tough. And again, some good performances. Thomas Nisham, the best in the men's, actually with a course record of 1:38.59, just under that 1:39 marker. 51.16 on the bike, and then a very impressive 41.03 run. In the women's, Helen Talbot, who dominated at the Sandman, winning yet again, 1:58.11 the time for the fastest woman in the sprint here. Well, back to the main event of the day. Ewan Brown coming into T2, and on that final climb up to the Crimea Pass, he gained a little ground, but he's done great damage on the descent, and we're waiting to see just how far ahead he is. But estimates have it at over 2.5 minutes, and that's a sort of advantage you cannot give this man. 800 metres of ascent to come, and with his training on the Pentlands, he should be able to cope. At least he knows exactly what's coming.
Burst out of transition with a bit of adrenaline, but then as soon as you get up above the forest, that adrenaline kind of wears off, and then you've realise what you've got to go and do. and then it sinks in. But it's just one foot in front of the other, and more so on something like this than any other run.
Alex Foster is next, and the margin is over 3 minutes. Losing a lot of time in the latter stages of the bike ride. Is that his chance gone? Well, he's got to conquer the mountain, and he has to take 3.5 minutes off Ewan Brown. That is going to be tough.
I think it's really the unknown for a lot of people who enter this race, how demanding the run is. Some people don't necessarily do fell running. I train quite a bit on the fells, so more than anything I enjoy this race.
Well, here's Paul Hawkins. We saw him take a crash on the bike, and I'm pretty sure he's still suffering from that. Looks to be a little bit painful on that left-hand side. That's where the impact was, and Paul Hawkins' hope of a win has gone. Tom van den Busch from Belgium. Well, I hope he's been training on Signal de Potrage, which is Belgium's highest hill at 694 metres. And they've built a tower of 6 metres on top so they can have a training session of 700 metres. Can he cope? It is relentless. One step in front of the other maybe, but one step above the other. That is what's significant. And when you get to the top and your legs are finished, you then have to run down through this sort of a minefield. That is where Ewan Brown's only danger lies now. He reaches the top of Moyle Chabos and no time to enjoy the view. Natalie Seymour hasn't put a foot wrong so far. Remember, her background is field hockey. This is about as far removed from that as is possible.
My run is my strength normally, so any bits that I feel like I can attack, I will, and the rest of it, I'll just make sure that I get down in one piece and really try and stay focused.
Lindsay Griffiths in second place, and a nice running action from her. She may gain some time here, but she's got a lot of work to do to catch Natalie Seymour. And as she goes up, Ewan Brown comes down, streaks ahead of the rest of the field. It's been another brilliant performance by Ewan Brown. Lots of personal challenges going on, some after PBs of course, some just wanting to beat a training mate. Most knowing that finishing is good enough. Natalie Seymour has done the hard work. Now she just needs to be careful on the way down. But this is going to be tricky for her. Ewan Brown, very fluent. He's great on the hills, multi-terrain athlete, and he continues his domination in the Always Aim Tri-Series. News is that he's going to Xterra next year, so an opportunity perhaps for someone else to win one of these races. And this race, incidentally, is going to be held earlier in the year, so the water is not so cold. That will be a delight for those who don't like 11 degrees. And Ewan Brown just over the 3-hour mark, so nearly beating that 3-hour mark. What a fine performance from him. Clean sweep in 2014, clean sweep in 2015, and that is 7 Always Aim Tri events in succession that he's won.
Oh, that was the hardest day of the year, I think. Comes at the end of the year when you're knackered, and then someone asks for like 3 hours of solid effort up and down hills with Alex. I think Alex was catching me on the hill, but it felt like it anyway. I was just plodding like a tortoise up there, and then I got to the top and just sort of let it go.
Alex Foster, familiar territory, but he should hold his head high because it's another really strong performance from him. He's just under 5 minutes adrift of the winning time, so losing a bit of ground on the way down the hill.
Although I felt like crying on the run, I felt like everyone else would be suffering the same. Just got to keep moving. I took a tumble coming down. I don't know if I broke my finger, I don't know. But you can't afford to let off coming down. Especially when you know these people aren't chasing you, you kind of run in fear.
And what a great performance from Tom van den Busch of Belgium. He's overtaken the injured Paul Hawkins, but he's got himself on the podium. So the men's results: Brown, Foster, van den Busch on the podium, Lewis Ecclestone a respectable fourth, and Steve Schofield holding up his end for the over 40s. Great race from him. And in the series, Brown is the runaway winner yet again. Natalie Seymour, she's got her trip to Nevis. It's in the bag. 2 victories in a row for Natalie Seymour, and she finished runner-up in the first event of the year, the Slate Man. What a shame Susie Richards got injured. It would have been a fine contest, but I think Seymour might have come out on top.
That run was like nothing else I've ever done. I don't think I've even walked up a mountain that high. Like, so to do it then just felt like the best achievement. And you know, I just like thank you to all the competitors out there because they were so supportive, and I had the best support crew here, not only teammates racing, but you know, my other half and his family and my family, and they just got me round. It's just amazing. I'm really, really pleased.
Well, isn't it going to be interesting to see how far she goes in the sport as we watch Lindsay Griffiths, a member of the RAF Triathlon Club, coming in to finish in second place. A really strong athlete and a good run to finish off her day. 1 hour 18 on the mountain for Griffiths. So Seymour Griffiths 1 and 2, Celia Boothman claiming 3rd in the women's event, ahead of Voice and Johnson. And if Griffiths works on her bike over the winter, then she could challenge for the series next year.
I think up till the last 2 miles or so, this is the triathlon that I've enjoyed the most this year, ironically. Really good bike leg. I sort of got a second wind about 10 miles from the end or something, and that pushed me on to the end. Yeah, really good support out there. All the athletes encouraging each other, coming up and down the last hill, and yeah, lots of support around the course. It's been really good.
The winners may take around the 3 hour mark. There are plenty who will be taking 4, 5, some will even take 6 hours to complete today. It's a phenomenal effort and one that they'll remember for a long time. Such a spectacular race. Those muscles are going to ache for a while yet. But many will be getting ready for next year. Let's just remind ourselves of the series. It all started back in May. Llanberis hosting the Slate Man, a chilly dip in Llyn, and then that brutal run through the quarries. And then to Anglesey, the Sandman, a sea swim, a tour of Anglesey on the bikes, and a really tough sand dune run to wrap it up. And finally, the Snowman in the heart of Snowdonia with mind-blowing views. Each of these races, an adventure, each with its own character, all of them with that same inclusive, welcoming atmosphere. For many, this is triathlon at its best.